Okay, welcome everyone to our conversation with Kyiv Contemporary Music Days and the Ukrainian Classical Musician Support Fund. We're so incredibly honored to have them all here with us today. Kyiv Contemporary Music Days, KCMD, provides help to Ukrainian classical musicians, composers, performers, and musicologists. And in addition to the video release of Cellists United, we're so happy to have KCMD here with us today. And I'll hand it off to Robert Rund, Executive Director of CelloBello.
Hello, everyone watching out on Facebook and on YouTube. We're so grateful to have this conversation today. It's really a public presentation of a conversation that's been going on now for several weeks, and I have really enjoyed getting to know all of the folks that I've had the opportunity to meet from Kyiv Contemporary Music Days. And I want to give a little bit of a background quickly on how this even came about. CelloBello for months since February has been really heartbroken, frankly, by all of the events happening in Ukraine and trying to find our little piece that we could do to be supportive and to embrace Ukrainian people, and particularly the musicians there. And it's been on our hearts and minds for many, many months. And we decided to do something musically, which is obviously what we can do as musicians and as a musical platform. So we created a video of 6 cellists in a special arrangement of a Ukrainian folk song and the national anthem. I hope you saw that premiere an hour ago, but that's available on our YouTube channel. In the process of doing that, we have reached out to Ukrainian cellists throughout the country and many who have been displaced to other countries. And 2 of them participated in that video. And along the way, we thought, one of the things we could do is to help not only raise awareness for the plight of classical musicians in Ukraine, but also to raise some funds, and identifying an organization that would best be able to use those funds and whose spending in that area would most directly impact the lives of classical musicians in the country. And so we were looking for recommendations, and we reached out to the 2 Ukrainian cellists that participated in the video, and the Ukrainian Classical Musicians Support Fund came really to the top of the list. And so when we came across that organization, I started looking into who that was and to sort of do our due diligence for our community to find out who was behind this. And that was when I came across Kyiv Contemporary Music Days, and in particular Albert Saprikin, and we began a dialogue about this. And I asked if we could speak by Zoom call initially, just to get to know the organization a bit more and how this came about. And frankly, when I had that conversation, it really touched me in a way that felt like unusually privileged access to people who are going through this directly and firsthand, and gave me a small window in on what is happening there and what that means for the musical community. And once I had that conversation, I felt like I wanted to share it with all of my classical musician friends and people in the business here in the United States, and hence the idea for this conversation came about. And so I'm very grateful for the fact that 4 of their team members are here today with us, and I'll introduce them all separately. But Les Vinogradov is here to joining us, and Maria Titova, Daria Evdovina. How did I do with that one? And Albert, of course. So thank you, and for bearing with my horrible pronunciations. But It's great to have you here. And I just wanted to engage in a conversation. And so I have some questions. And of course, those of you watching can send your questions in the chat and we'll try to get those answered. But this is really, I think, quite special for us. And I hope it's the beginning of many conversations that we have, and a friendship and a kinship over time that we can continue to report on what's going on there. And so I guess I would like to start because, Kyiv Contemporary Music Days was around long before all of this mess started in February, at least in the most recent egregious act. But I would say that, I would love to know, and we'll get into some of the history of what you've been doing. But I think talking about Ukrainian music in general and why it matters now, maybe more than ever before. And so I'd love to hear maybe less, if you have some things to share on that front, I would love to hear it.
Sure. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for having us here. Thank you for organizing this wonderful event. We really appreciate it. And this is really important for Ukrainians all over the world right now. And yes, today is Ukraine's Independence Day, as you know, and of course, this is a heavily symbolic event, especially this year. And so I would like to say a few words why it matters to play Ukrainian music now, perhaps like more than like never before. So the fact that we can play and listen to Ukrainian music today is great luck, in fact. Truth is that throughout history, Ukrainian culture, just like the Ukrainian people itself, had all the chances to disappear forever. Ukraine has existed under Russian rule for almost 300 years, and Ukraine was basically treated as a colony, both economically, socially, and culturally. So like the policies of the Russian Empire was to suck out talents from the periphery to metropolitan centers in St. Petersburg and Moscow, thus appropriating Ukrainian culture and labeling it as Russian. And for example, Maxim Berezovsky, an essential 18th century composer, marketed as the author of the first Russian symphony, was in fact Ukrainian. Likewise, Dmitro Portnyansky, who has had a profound influence on Tchaikovsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, and who is still widely considered a Russian composer, was Ukrainian as well. So it is common knowledge in Ukraine, but unfortunately not so in the West, that Russia has been systematically repressing Ukrainian intelligentsia since at least the 19th century, with official bans of the Ukrainian language and persecutions of Ukrainian cultural and political elites. Later in Soviet times, Moscow led several waves of devastating repressions, killing and imprisoning thousands of Ukrainian artists, writers, thinkers, and clergy. This happened not only under Stalin, just to give you some context. In fact, repressions against Ukrainian culture continued up until the collapse of the USSR. So even those Ukrainian artists who were not physically repressed by the regime suffered from Moscow's colonial practices and policies. For example, the only way for a classical composer to make a successful career in the Soviet Union was basically by moving to Moscow and becoming a de facto Russian composer. Moscow had a monopoly on high cosmopolitan culture, while the periphery, including Ukraine, was only allowed to produce second-rate, provincial, and ethnographic art. That is why Boris Letushinsky, Ukraine's leading 20th century composer, who chose to stay in Kyiv and worked there his entire life, could never get anywhere close to the success of Sergei Prokofiev or Dmitry Shostakovich, his contemporaries, even though his work was as diverse and his musical language as modern as theirs. To me, it is something of a miracle that despite all the terror and systematic eradication, Ukrainian culture has survived. And within a short span of 30 years after we regained our independence in 1991, it started blooming again. with new names, new organizations, and new music. But everything that we have built over these last 30 years is now threatened by Russia once again. Since February 24th, Russian troops have deliberately destroyed or heavily damaged over 400 objects of cultural heritage in Ukraine. These include museums, universities, schools, libraries, cultural centers, and more. In the context of music, that means ruined concert halls, interrupted classes, and instruments lost or damaged by the war, not to mention the lives of the musicians themselves who face imminent danger on a daily basis. Albert will talk more about Ukrainian musicians shortly, but right now I would just like to stress this. We are truly fortunate to be able to hear Ukrainian music today, and we should never forget what price millions of Ukrainians had to pay for this. I know many musicians from around the globe will hear me now, and I have this to say. While Ukraine is fighting for freedom, please choose to include Ukrainian music in your programs. While Ukrainians are dying every day for their right to exist, please choose to collaborate with Ukrainian musicians, Ukrainian composers, musicologists, and other music professionals. Discover Ukrainian culture, give a platform to Ukrainian voices, and collaborate with Ukrainian professionals. That is by far the best way you, as a member of the international musical community, can support Ukraine. You know, Ukraine has a rich classical music culture. We have amazing composers from Baroque to electroacoustic, and from romantics to minimalist. Much of the work still remains something of a hidden gem, and what better time to discover them than now? I know that it's not always easy to navigate a music scene that is brand new to you, like, figuring out who the key composers are or where to find sheet music. Thankfully, things have been improving on that side in recent years, and there are useful online resources that we're going to share in the chat today, and we'll make sure to include the links in the video description when this goes on YouTube. And of course, Kyiv Contemporary Music Days are here for you if you need guidance in this exciting world of new music of Ukraine. So please feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to provide more context for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that stresses something that I think is so important, is that this isn't just a conversation that we can all have for 1 hour on Independence Day in Ukraine. It's a conversation that really needs to continue, and Ukrainian music needs to be incorporated into more programming, before February and now even more importantly. But I think we can continue to provide resources for our audience, and we will certainly include those in the chat, and we will disseminate them to the CelloBello audience. If for some reason there's a piece of information for any of you watching that you don't receive, or a link that you don't get, please feel free to send us an email at events@cellobello.org, and we will make sure to send you those links directly and to stay in touch with you. It's also just a good reminder at this moment, the Ukrainian Classical Music Support Fund, Musician Support Fund, is linked in the description. It is also linked in the description of the music video that we produced, and we certainly are trying to raise funds today for that organization, which we'll be talking about more as we go. But I think in terms of Kyiv Contemporary Music Days, I think what I found fascinating in talking to Albert in our conversations before was just sort of what Kyiv Contemporary Music Days have been doing for the last 7 years, and the fact that it's shifted now, obviously, for all the reasons that we know about. I think it's important to actually take a step back and see what this young team of talented people have been doing for several years now. So I wonder, Albert, if you could just share with us sort of what you had been doing and what you are typically doing as an organization prior to and maybe since February 24th.
Thanks. Hello, Robert, and hello, everyone. Once again, I also would like to thank you for having us today and for all the work you've put into making this conversation start to happen. Well, okay, so Kyiv Contemporary Music Days. We started back in 2015, and from then and until the very end of last year, we've been functioning as a concert and educational platform for contemporary classical music. In terms of formats, things we did, usually that was either festivals, we did those in Ukraine, in Kyiv and Lviv, also in Portugal, in Lisbon, and in partnership with one of the Kyiv Contemporary Music Days co-founders, Junya Makina, who is a violinist from Japan. We also did a festival there in Mishima. Yeah, that's usually the things we did. Also, like standalone concerts, either chamber or orchestra or electroacoustic music, video concerts, international masterclasses. We did those. We did 7 masterclasses for either composers or performers. And yeah, throughout the last 7 years, we did around 150 events, and we've been privileged and very lucky to be joined, first of all, by the broad volunteer community in Ukraine, who actually joined our projects to make them happen, but also by musicians from around 20-25 countries. Yeah, that's the thing we have been doing, and we've been joined by, for example, such composers in our projects as Åke Permerud from Sweden, or Jaime Reis from Portugal, who is a student of Karl Heinz Stockhausen, or Mikhail Kaeli, or Mehmet Jan Ozej, or Ukrainian composers, obviously Manden, for example, that was Alla Zagikevich, and by many musicians, performers, members of different ensembles, in mainly in countries of Western Europe. Yeah, so that's that. Basically, that's the things we have been doing, while trying to, bring the reality closer to our mission, which is, to enrich the community of classical contemporary music and to create different formats and projects that would help us to achieve this goal. Yeah, basically that's that.
Yeah, it's really quite impressive, and I guess I'm glad that Les is putting out the link as well with some additional resources. Someone asked already during the conversation, will there be music? And that's a question that we debated or talked through when planning the session. And certainly we'd love to fill you with music and things to listen to and things to research. But we felt that limited to this 1 hour, there was so much to get across. And Albert, I'm struck by, the commonalities we have between CelloBello and KCMD, in the sense that, we're also putting out master classes and conversations with musicians. And so I hadn't really thought about this before, but we do share some common themes, and we would love to maybe include more cello content in partnership with KCMD as we move forward. So there's, as we're talking, I'm thinking of new ideas, but yes. So, obviously you've had a full-scale arts organization that's been collaborative with several different countries thus far, and 150 events in 7 years is no small number. And people can learn about that certainly on the KCMD website as well. But I think it's, the reason that we're here today really has much to do with what has happened starting on February 24th, and how your organization has responded and sort of taken up your own role as defenders of Ukraine, and the work that you're doing amidst, a terrible assault. And so I would love for you to sort of share kind of how the organization had to pivot in February, and what you've done to continue to be of the utmost service to Ukrainian musicians and the Ukrainian people.
Yeah, maybe I will start a little. Well, yeah, when the huge scale or full scale invasion from Russia started, like, yeah, obviously most of the members of the team, they were here in Ukraine, and we actually at this point most of our members are still in Ukraine. And during the first weeks we were trying, to figure out how to ensure the safety of ourselves, our families, our friends, our close ones, how to help to like random people we meet in line, things like that. Since probably, as you know, immediately on February 24th, Kyiv was also endangered, and the next day some minor parts of Russian troops were actually visiting the streets of Kyiv. So we've been doing we've been trying to make sure that everyone is more or less safe. And then we realized, okay, we are NGO, we are organization. We do know from our experience and also from what we hear from different musicians that we know of, that now the professional classical musicians, they will definitely start meeting financial problems and other problems, and we started thinking, how could we help them? And yeah, this is leading. These thoughts led us to the focus shift that we decided to make after February 24th. Maybe may I ask Daria to go on with that?
Sure. Yes. So once again, happy to be here and very grateful for having us. And I hope that will bring a little bit more information, useful information for everyone. Jumping into the discussion and talking about the way how the fund started. So we basically we started to the fund already in March. So trying to put together thoughts and trying to understand how to streamline and how to use the potential of our organization in the best possible way. So we've realized that the two directions that we should probably take is one, both of them serving the needs of the musicians and the music community in general. So not only musicians, but actually composers and musicologists, not only contemporary music folks, but any classical music performers or theoreticians. And we decided that on one hand, we need to support them financially. And this is how the fund started functioning. We started to raise money in any possible way to just provide the initial financial, to cover the initial financial needs for people who, might have lost pretty much everything and not kind of able to purchase the very basic items such as food and medicine, or pay for rent, or just sort out the kind of things that we don't necessarily even think about in the normal life. On the other hand, we also realized that it's kind of our this is something we really need to take care of. We need to help musicians, Ukrainian musicians, to stand out on the international platforms and to have the voice in the international community. Therefore, we started to organize various international activities, starting from these kind of conversations that we are having right now. And we're, once again, thank you very much for having us. Up to charity concerts. And we had quite a few fantastic people or organizations supporting us during this time. So we already collaborated a little bit with INM Berlin and with Synesthesis Ensemble in Lithuania. And we are actually planning to have 2 days of music, of Ukrainian music, with Ukrainian performers and Ukrainian compositions in November, actually November 12 and 13 in Triennale Milano. So in case anyone is around, please come and join. We would be really happy to share a little bit of our music, basically. So those were the activities that we started to organize. But back to the fund, we kind of put a lot of thought into how the fund should function. So we decided to support all different groups that we found were most endangered, starting from the elderly and disabled Ukrainian musicians who are in Ukraine, but also people who were forced to leave Ukraine, people who remain in Ukraine but lost their jobs, or even people who officially still have their job, but de facto might not have the opportunity to perform, therefore not able to earn the way they used to. Those were the groups, the categories, and then we also invited the independent board, as we felt it would be proper to have people outside of the organization to make decisions. We have an international board of 6 people who are either musicians or theoreticians, in many cases professors, 3 of them from Ukraine, 3 of them from abroad, so we can bring different perspectives, and we have both insider understanding of the situation, but also a little bit of the vision from a little bit of a different angle, so we can ensure that the judgment is as clear and as fair as possible. And then we trust them to make decisions that we later on, as the organization, catch up to execute. We have the team of, well, actually our team varies in KCMD, and I would say it's around 12-15 people depending on the projects, and it's a huge network of friends and volunteers who are also helping depending on the occasion. But specifically for the fund needs, there are 12 people who were working for quite a long time pro bono, just seeing and feeling that this is something that we all have the urge to put our efforts in, and that's pretty much how it started. Nevertheless, recently, and I think we will talk about that a little bit later, we've not only been able to raise the funding from private donations, but also started to look for organizations that can support us. And in this case, for instance, the first big donor became Ernst von Siemens from Switzerland, who helped us to secure the work of the fund and actually like being able to pay salaries to people. So even though we're still having a lot of ambitions, and that's something that we need to constantly cover, and there's still rising amount of people who need support, and that still needs to be addressed. We kind of feel that the fund now is quite sustainable, and we've managed to fundraise around 20,000 euros so far by private donations, and around the same amount with the institutional donations. And we already received more than 700 applications for the sport. Most of them already reviewed by the board. It's day-by-day routine, background of the process. And we already distributed around 17,000 euros. So it's pretty much as fast as possible. And every day the fund improves the logistics. So we're just going quickly or diving quickly into the new realm that we never had the need to learn before. But this is how the fund functions at the moment. And I think we can talk more definitely on what their ambitions or like the ideas of the ways how we can support musicians we had, because as I mentioned, we already covered the financial needs in terms of one-time charity donations according to Ukrainian legal ruling. But at the same time, we are also aiming to help in terms of reparation, restoration, or purchase of musical instruments, because as you can imagine, many people just didn't have the opportunity to bother about grabbing their violin while running away from the shelling. So there's a lot of people or musicians who are looking for that kind of support, and luckily we already progressively starting to develop this new stream or sub program that will be there very soon. And but for that one, once again, since we are talking to now publicly to the community, we always open to conversations and discussions on how maybe we can improve, or where should we look for more support. And maybe not to take too much time, the last thing I wanted to mention is also that there's a lot of musicians right now who are in need of jobs. That's another sub-program that we are also starting very soon with the just the selection of job opportunities or other opportunities for Ukrainian musicians, composers, and theoreticians. So we would be very grateful if you find a chance to have a look at our websites and look at the information that we are having there regarding the ways to help. For instance, distributing the information about the fund itself. Everything is there, everything is online on the website. You just need to print out the QR code and leave it somewhere nicely on the bench, and who knows. So that's pretty much it for now. But yeah,
I have so many questions for you. First of all, thank you for sharing all of that. There's a lot there, and I think it's remarkable that you all have taken all of your energy and devoted it to such a noble purpose in a very difficult time. So, that being said, there are things that I know now that I've read a lot and talked to you that I just want to highlight for people out there. So I may ask you a few questions, but what are just keeping this conversation, what have been the top needs? And we'll be talking about sort of what a musician's life has been like in a few minutes, but in terms of the needs that have come forth. So people come to the fund and they apply for funding from the support fund, which is the support fund that we're really asking people to consider a contribution to today. And I'll take a step back and say, CelloBello knew from the beginning that there are a lot of enormous and very good efforts to support Ukraine, but we felt our area would be to support classical musicians and musicians in general in the country. And so we chose this particular fund. But tell me, so people applied to get funding, and what have been sort of the top needs, say 2 or 3 top needs of people that you have supported?
Can I have this one?
Sure.
Thank you. Same way as CelloBello, we have realized that that the area that we focus on and we know about, and the community we know about, and we know the struggles of the community is classical music community. So we focused on them as well. But firstly, of course, obviously, they are at the time of war. They are people. So they have the same needs as all the people when the war comes to your country. The needs have shifted throughout the path of these 6 months. By the way, today marks 6 months as we fight against Russia. They thought they would defeat us in 3 days. Eat that. In terms of needs, the main need that we see from the applications, and we have received 700 of them at this point, are first of all job search. People are searching for jobs, and well, you can imagine the situation. Your country is at war, and there is constant risk of air raid attack And it doesn't matter whether you live in the Donbas region, or you live in Kyiv, or you live even in Lviv. When I was living in Lviv for a couple of months, and I was witnessing air raid attacks 4 kilometers from me. So it doesn't really matter where you physically are situated in Ukraine. This can be there. Therefore, the concerts, especially for the first month, were cancelled. So now it's a little bit different situation. Now the institutions that are funded by the government, they have managed and figure out how they can maintain concert activities. But in the first months, no concerts, no cultural life for safety reasons. So you as a musician, especially if you find yourself if you meet February 24th as a freelancer whose income depends on ongoing gigs or concerts that you give, you lose the opportunity to maintain yourself and to support your family if that is also a thing of need. So yeah, job search is the most frequent request we have. Other types of requests are professional needs. We did receive a lot of applications, which are the member of our team, Polina Horodiyska, she evaluates she reads through all the applications that we receive, and then she brings it into a nicely prepared analytics document where all the numbers, all the trends are there. So yeah, professional needs, and that is, for example, well, you can imagine if you happen to be a cellist and you found yourself in Kyiv region, and you know that you have maybe a couple of hours to leave your house and take your family with you, since you know that Russians are coming in like a couple of hours, you would probably not think about taking cello with you, just due to the size of the instrument, which actually happened to a lot of musicians, both in Kyiv region, Kharkiv, other areas of Ukraine. So some of musicians, they just left their instruments at home, and then some of those musicians' homes have been either damaged or destroyed or just vandalized by Russians. That's also a common thing for us to witness when you come back to your home after the territory was occupied, and you see that your home is robbed. Another story that we saw from the friends of our online is that when someone would go, when the house owners would come back home and start playing piano, the piano would explode and people would die. That's not a fairy tale. That's the things we witness. This is hard to invent. So yeah, professional needs like instruments or possibility to give concerts, things like that. And the third top request is food. People just need money to get some food. Sometimes this is due to financial reasons, and sometimes a lot of Ukrainians, including musicians, but Ukrainians in general, are not as privileged as, for example, members of our team is, and they have found themselves very quickly occupied or shelled by Russians who were close, Russian army who was close to their cities. So they spent sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months in either shelters of their houses or homes, or in their homes since they do not have shelters, just hoping that the rocket would not visit the place they live in. And they met problems with just shortage of food, medicine, water. And yes, in 21st century, some of our co-citizens, they had problems with just have enough food or actually have drinkable water, and that includes also musicians. So there's that. And then it goes medicine and treatments. That's another thing that we often see as a request. So we either help them with money, or during first months we were trying to find specific medicine and to find a way to deliver it to the people, since again, during first months, we had shortage of some medicine that just helps people, to maintain their life, especially if they are in some critical condition. So yeah, there's that. Those are probably the main needs we see from the around 700 applications we have received.
Yeah, and what I love about your site, and the link is going to be in the chat or certainly in the description below. It's simply that you kind of really explain that in terms of where the money goes and what specifically it's for. I think people can feel confident if they make a contribution that it's going to directly impact people and in particular musicians in Ukraine, which is our little window into our support. And so I'm curious, just, I mean, this whole situation is beyond all of the obvious destruction and death and just horrific, nature of war and invasion. But also it's just traumatic. And, I had the luxury of seeing, some of the video presentation that you had made, the playlist of videos by musicians there that were not necessarily musical, but just capturing moments in their lives, over those first few months. And that trauma is not going to go away, maybe forever. And so I think, one of the values and the power of art and music is to capture that and to express it, and for people to, across the other side of the planet, be able to feel it and to be able to sympathize and embrace you. I think embrace people who are enduring such things. CelloBello's mission from the beginning has been to develop a global community of cellists in particular, but I think we, it's just our small slice of humanity that we work with on a regular basis. But I just, I'd love to hear just sort of what, I mean, it seems that some of you are musicians as well. So, maybe you speak from a personal experience, but, what is this, just the experience, and how has it changed your perspective toward music making when such, sort of primal needs are, in your immediate concern? How has it changed your perspective on the music making that you do, and towards, the role of music and the importance of music at a time like this?
Everyone started thinking. Now I'm addressing the friends of mine and the colleagues. Please feel free to interrupt me. Probably I will be the icebreaker.
You can all open your mics. You can all open your mics. We can have an open conversation.
And then we can have a choir. Yeah. I can speak just on behalf of myself. I happen to be a composer, and starting from when the war started, I just stopped writing music, and that's it. Then I tried then I wrote one piece that was kind of already prepared due to the need to make this for the concert, and that's it. From what I see among at least some of my colleagues, there is this, again, as you said, trauma, and also we feel kind of numb, since there's something, trauma experience that happens to a person that is difficult to digest. that's exactly what happens to basically all of the Ukrainians, not only the musicians. And that's it looks like at this point we are still in survival mode, which doesn't necessarily mean physical survival, but all the efforts, basically all the Ukrainians, no matter where they are physically present at this moment, either within Ukraine or in some other country, maybe abroad, we all kind of try to create this net of safety and net of enforcing this huge organism that we call Ukraine, to fight back and to bring the independence back, also to liberate the people who live in the occupied territories. And it feels like after the goal is achieved, then probably we would be able to start processing everything that was happening within internally. At this point, we kind of, from my perspective, from what I see, it feels like we all are mobilized. We feel each other's shoulders, and we try to do everything we can on the position we are to bring the war to its logical and fair end. But that's just me. I don't know, maybe I see Daria has unmuted her microphone.
Sure, yes. So I wouldn't necessarily generalize on each and every person, because of course everyone is facing the situation in one's own way. But I would agree that somehow you could say that a lot of those people whom I knew who are used to express their feelings through art means, and just to mention, not the whole team of Kyiv Contemporary Music Days are musicians. Actually, we are all from different fields. I'm in particular more trained in media arts, and I'm doing more of the performative, interactive, laboratory kind of stuff with, a lot of improv and a lot of bodily cognition. So for me, it was very logical before the beginning of the war to move through the bodily stuff, through the expression of the emotions just right there, and work with the communities. Whereas after the beginning of the war, and this is what I was trying to say at first, a lot of people whom I used to see as the ones who are free to express themselves and trying to use the art as a tool, actually became a little bit numb and not necessarily able to produce art at this point. It's more of this necessity that everyone are facing to tackle very small problems, or like step by step, going through the situations, with doing very small tasks day by day, and just becoming as organized as possible and as structured as possible. Whereas artistic mode is a little bit of a different kind of mindset that you're supposed to have at this point. So for me personally, it the same way as Albert just described, it was more about shifting from self-expression to a very practical need of, or even personal needs, to help others and to contribute to a bigger communal things that are happening. And that's how I feel many people are quickly became neither not that much of an artist, but more volunteers and activists. But it's just our just mine and Albert's, for instance, point of view. And I can imagine that there are a lot of people who are actually having a different perspective and going through the process differently. So if you guys want to share, or the stories, or you want to say it's from your perspective, just please feel free to jump in.
I can share my little thoughts. I'm not really like strictly speaking, a composer in the classical meaning sense of the word. So I do create music, and I felt that, of course, like during the first months when it was mostly stress and shock, it was basically impossible to even think about, creating anything. It was basically the coping mechanisms, in play when you're just thinking about the most basic things about your like loved ones, families, and friends. But at the same time, soon after that, once I started kind of feeling myself again, maybe a month or two later, there was this urge to to release stuff, to not like necessarily create new stuff, but to make some kind of a release, to raise awareness, to like be another Ukrainian voice that can, speak for Ukraine artistically. So, well, I have a band, and we just had some material that was already recorded at the moment, and we just felt that it was important to release that stuff, that we were not going to release like that soon, but we just released it also to, make a small fundraising campaign for our drummer who has been volunteering in Ukraine. So I felt that like right now I'm feeling that although it is super hard for me to create something new at the moment, I still feel like I would like to maybe, make another release just as a statement, just as a way of saying, here I am, I still exist, we Ukrainians are still there, and just to keep this story going. So that's my feeling.
Thank you, Maria.
Yes, I want to say sorry, because my English is not so good like less English or Arvelt or Daria. So I'm sorry, but I will try. Okay, actually I'm a musicologist, and this year I was finished my magister education, and when the war starts, I should write my magister paper, and it's totally, I feel so useless, because I want everything I want to help my country, and I understand that my paper, my musicology specialization, I feel like I can't do anything, and I was in like, I don't understand what to do, I don't understand how to do, because all my plans was ruined in 1 second. And actually being participant of Kyiv Contemporary Music Days is very helpful for me, was very helpful, because I feel I stopped to feel useless of myself, because I understand that we can help people, we can do something useful for our country, and now I'm trying to back to my musicology specialization to write something, but it's still hard, because it's hard to I will never live in a country without war, because war is already in my country, and all my plans for life was without this war. So it's like a new I need to create something new in my understanding of reality, I think. And now I'm on a way, but it's still not so easy. I hope it was not so bad. I'm so sorry. But thank you for giving me.
Oh, you need not apologize at all. Your English was fantastic, and your heart shows very strongly through everything that you shared. And I can only imagine. I did want to say, I know that a few of you have to run promptly. So if you have to go, I understand. I want to thank you before you jump off. We're going to continue this conversation for a few more minutes, but if you have to jump off, I understand. Thank you for being here very, very much. It means the world, and we're with you. I wanted to tell you quickly before you go that our founder, Paul Katz, cellist and phenomenal teacher, did say that he just found this incredibly inspiring. He also wanted to say the war and atrocity is an atrocity and Russia must be defeated. He said, in the meantime, I hope CelloBello can help raise awareness and support with his admiration. So thank you guys that have to jump off, but we're going to continue talking for a few more minutes. So thank you. So yeah, you know, Maria, all of you, I just think, I think it's important, and one of the things CelloBello can do is simply just to wrap our arms around you. And I hope that organizations around the world continue to, you know, if we could see you in person, we'd put our arms around you and give you a hug. This is just a horrible situation. And it is unimaginable to think that you could, I have a hard enough time making brain space for composing in a very easy world, you know, and I don't have missiles flying overhead or the threat of harm, or and it's still at times this difficult with all of just life to be able to create and to be able to focus on our artistic work. So I can only begin to imagine. So thank you for letting us in on that. And I did want to, Albert, I hope you'll be okay. This a little bit off script, but when you and I talked, we talked specifically about the two pieces that are in the music video that we made, the folk song "Oh in the Meadow, a Red Guelder Rose," which has been done, you know, a few times over the past 6 months by different artists quite effectively, and the Ukrainian national anthem, of course. And the last time we talked about that, and I shared with you the video, you know, it struck me how powerful, sort of like, you know, at times how a national anthem can really bring back a specific memory, or in times of such tremendous, you know, challenge to a sovereignty that can be so meaningful. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on Mike Block's arrangement and that we did, and just what these two pieces mean, you know, for you as Ukrainians.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think I have I did not say that today. It means a lot, all the effort, and we do know how much effort one needs to put into producing a music video, especially when you have different musicians in different physical places. So thank you for having this idea and for making it come true. The arrangement is actually really good. As I told you when we were having our first Zoom, it's done really professionally, and I did like the decisions the arranger made in terms of harmonic structure, and of course the performers are as well just simply amazing. And in terms of the songs, in terms of the music material itself, well, I will again. I would not like to generalize. I can speak on my behalf, but then again, I do know that I'm not the only one who has this. In terms of first song, Червона Калина, actually, I personally I have discovered it in March this year. I never heard it before. Yeah, can you imagine, guys? But that's just me. That's really just me. I can see from the faces of Maria and Daria that's something of a common knowledge. So this really associates in my head with this time of fighting back, and I feel a lot of energy in this song. And there were many times I actually cried by just thinking about it, not even listening to it. In terms of the national anthem, you know, some of us, and me as well, I took part in this revolution of dignity that was happening in 2013 and 2014 when we were fighting fighting and the pro-Russian president, and we were first peacefully, and then after being attacked physically and being shot not peacefully, protesting in the main square of the capital of Ukraine, in Kyiv. And the anthem was the thing that people were singing all the time. And if you look into the lyrics of it, like, we will put our bodies and our souls for our freedom. That's actually what Ukrainians have been doing starting from 2013. But also, that's the thing that Ukrainians have been doing during Soviet times. That's also the thing that Ukrainians have been doing in one way or another through all this long 300 years history of Russia trying to maintain its empire status. And for some reason, Ukraine is the most important territory. For them, we are just territory that they need to have under their control in order to maintain the status of the empire. So yeah, that resonates a lot. And on the hottest, on the most stressful, risky days when the snipers were on the building in the city center of Kyiv, in the Maidan Square, and were actually shooting people, I've been witnessing a guy, he was, I don't know, probably like 30, 34, 32, as I am now, years old, who was shot, and I don't know whether he survived or not. He looks like he will not survive this injury. And the last thing he did was singing the anthem. Exactly this, like, I will put my soul and my body for our freedom. So this music means a lot to me. And I do know that this anthem is just not just like a formal or very beautiful thing. That's actually a thing that has a lot of meaning for us and for all those who are, not only singing but doing what is declared in the lyrics of our anthem. And again, it's in a way, even like for us who witness this reality, it's still strange to realize that in 21st century we have a war in the center of geography of the Europe continent. But yeah, that's what's happening. But we're fighting back, and we're doing that quite efficiently.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think it's helpful for our audience to know, because as they watch the music video, it certainly, and it's there's a statement at the end of the video that was dedicated to those who have been fighting and continue to fight and put their life on the line and to suffer for freedom. And that's what that video is for. And I think it's helpful to know sort of a little bit more about the depth of meaning and importance of the actual music itself. And so thank you for that. Yes, Daria.
I think I just want to quickly compliment what has been just said with a little bit of elaboration, since Albert confessed that he doesn't know the first song, he didn't know it before. It's actually tricky because, and it's so beautifully chosen. I don't know if you're aware of the history of the song itself, but it emerged in the community of the first, let's say, organized army of the Ukrainian troops in the beginning of the 20th century to fight the Bolshevik regime. So to actually fight against the Soviet Union, or like the future of the Soviet Union for Ukraine. So that's, I think that for only for that reason itself, it's already very beautiful and very smart choice of yours. So thank you for having a look and choosing those two very important songs in our history, or like compositions, let's say.
Yeah, we did do a little bit of research before we chose, and thankfully, for those that go back and watch the video, both the English and Cyrillic appear by stanza in the description, and so I think the lyrics are really important to both. And sometimes if you don't have a vocalist and you're dealing with instruments, when there are words, it is helpful and adds meaning to pay attention to those words. So thank you. And I don't know if I should, if our musicologist in the room wants to say anything further about those, but Maria.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say the same that Daria says it. I think it's beautiful choice because it's a very important song, and because the song was created in the same time, but like 100 years ago. And yes, I agree with it. Even without words, we understand it because all Ukrainians except Albert, I think, know this song. And
Pretty much so.
And
which is totally fine, composers.
yes.
You know.
And of course, our anthem, national anthem, it's now all Ukrainians understand this. All the world in this more. I don't know how to say it in English, but now it's a real word, not just a metaphor. Now we just understand what's going on, and that's why we as a nation have an anthem like this. Hymn. I'm sorry.
Anthem, yes. No, you
Yes.
got it. You're far more self-conscious than you need to be. You're doing beautifully. So yeah, I think we should. That's probably a good place to lead this conversation. You know, one of the cellists, one of the Ukrainian cellists in the video, Petro Sokash, is in Norway at this moment, and has been helping Ukrainians, refugees there for quite some time. But he really felt strongly about doing this, and I hope you all will meet him eventually. But he sent a message that said, "Stay strong, guys. We're all in this together." And he shared.
Thank
that,
you.
Yeah, he shared that not being in Ukraine is very painful, and that those like himself often feel like they can't do enough to help. But he did this, and he's sending his love and strength. So we'll leave that there. It's been really a fantastic conversation. We're going to have another in about 20 minutes. A handful of the cellists that participated. I don't think Gleb, unfortunately, he's somewhere in the mountains, but unable to get internet access at the moment. But I think that several of the other cellists will be there, and that conversation is going to be hosted and moderated by Natasha Brovsky, a quite renowned cellist in the United States and a faculty member at Juilliard in New York City. So feel free to join us for that. And please stay in touch with us, events@cellobello.org. Send us, I'm speaking to the general public now. If there are other links that we can share, we'll do that in the YouTube descriptions. And for anybody that wants more information, please let us know, and we'll keep you up to speed. We're going to put together the KCMD team and the CelloBello team in a couple of weeks for a Zoom call internally, so we can all finally meet and share our embrace that way in September. So Albert, I'll be in touch about that. Thank you guys so very much for doing this. It's so we feel it's so important, and frankly, this conversation is one that really should be reverberating around the arts community in the United States. I did a phone interview with NPR, with the National Public Radio, about this about an hour or two before, and they were very eager to know sort of how, you know, our colleagues and brothers and sisters and partners in this world of arts and art making are doing there. So I hope that they joined us, but we'll keep this dialogue going. And I'll leave it to you guys to, if there's anything else that you wanted to add before we finish up, you really should have the last word.
I will try to do this one. I would just like again to thank CelloBello for inviting us, also for doing the projects, the project with the video, and we do see the genuine will to support Ukraine in general and Ukrainian musicians. That means a lot to us. And if you know, when you live especially on the Independence Day, while knowing that there is a certain risk of Russia attacking your country, which it actually quite actively does today. It's shelling all the territory of the country, the size of France at this point. If there is something to say in the very end, it's just that, probably you can see that we are the same people as any other person on this planet are. And for us, it is very important that we do not, important for everyone to not to get tired from the news about what is going on in our country. We are tired actually as well, but at the same time we're fighting, and we're fighting not only for our freedom and for the lives of our people, but for the values that we share with with the civilized world. That's probably it. Of course, we hope that this war will end soon, but it might not, and we would need support. We do not ask to fight for us, but we need support. That's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you all. And definitely for those out there watching, please do support directly, give of your time and treasure in any way that you can. We'll put the link in the description and in the chat. Thank you all. We are with you. If you could only see the number of Ukraine flags throughout our country, throughout New York City, on bumper stickers, on buttons. And Daria, I think you have something you'd like to share, and Maria, sure, as well, if you need something. Yes, Daria.
Just very, very quickly, apart from financial support and these kind of events that we are organizing and we're very, very helpful for. Also, I think something I would invite people to do, if I may speak to everyone, is just explore Ukrainian culture, generally speaking, because it's rich and it's beautiful. And the more we know each other's cultures, the better we understand each other, and the better we understand where's the tricky mind games and where's the reality. So just be curious. That's probably what I'm suggesting today from my side.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Robert, for this conversation. I think we all tell everything that we want, and it's very important for us. And thank you so much for this project.
Thank you. It's our honor. And again, we're with you. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.